Yes. Thank you very much. And now I'll leave the floor to Ricky. Thank you so much, Ricky.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mariana, and thank you for all your excellent hard work in terms of this working group. You really are the anchor that keeps it all together, which is fantastic. So I'll just introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. So I'm one of the co-leads for Working Group 1. So it's myself, Mariana, and Lamore, who I believe is in the room as well. And the idea of Working Group 1, as I'm sure you're all aware, is looking at sort of conceptualizing, theorizing career and career guidance from a critical perspective. My name, I'm Dr. Ricky G. I'm an Associate Professor of Sociology at Nottingham University. Just to give you a bit of an insight into why I'm uber interested in this working group and this COST project. I actually started my professional life as a careers advisor. I worked as a careers advisor for about 3 or 4 years, and then I worked as a training manager. And initially, when I entered into the academy, when I entered Nottingham University, initially my role was to teach careers advisors. And I slowly found myself, as I started to engage with my doctorate, I found myself gravitating towards sociology, politics and philosophy. And predominantly because my experiences as a careers advisor were really important, really important grounding formative years in terms of my research, because my research now is on the sociology of work and career, and from a critical perspective. And I don't know if anyone else has been a practitioner and invariably you're sat in a broom cupboard in a school somewhere or a community centre somewhere, and you have a row of young people coming to talk to you, because invariably you're thrown in at the transition point between full-time education and the world of work. And what I found was that, most of the working class young lads that I interviewed wanted to be motor mechanics or join the army. And most of the young girls that I met wanted to be nursery nurses. And what I found was that, they were very, and this was back in the early 2000s, at a time when we had a new Labour government, and they were throwing loads of money at education as well, far more than they are today. And it made me realise that how much do the social structures that we're immersed within shape our careers. And I can remember during my training as a careers advisor, really gravitating towards the work of Ken Roberts, who's written for a number of decades. And he's always kept the same sort of premise, really, that work chooses us rather than we choose work. And I've been thinking and reflecting quite a lot on my own career recently, and I've kind of thought about that whenever I've gone for, if someone could mute, brilliant. And I was thinking about my career in terms of work career. I'm going to talk about broader perspectives careers as I go through this presentation. It made me realize that most of the jobs I've ever got in my life, I knew someone in the place of work where I got the job. So the first job I ever got in a restaurant, my brother worked there. The second job I got when I came first out of university was in the job centre, and I knew the person behind the desk, for example. And even when I got a job as a lecturer, I'd actually studied on the course that I went on to teach, and the people interviewing me had taught me. And so when we look at it through that vein, we can realize that a lot of career is shaped via social structures. We like to, as people involved in career guidance and career theory, like to big up agency. We like to big up choice and rational career plan and all that. And I'm not dissing that. That's useful stuff. But at the same time, how much choice do we actually have, particularly in the very precarious world that we find ourselves in at the moment, particularly with the rise of authoritarianism, populist authoritarianism, not only in America but across Europe, for example. It's really important that we ask these questions around, well, what is career guidance, and in what ways do the social, political, economic structures shape our life chances? And invariably, I'm sure what we're seeing across much of the West is a decline in living standards, precarious labour markets, and less choice. So I think it's really important. This is really timely, this project, to start thinking about career in terms of a critical perspective. So that's what I'm going to take you through here. This is going to be interactive. So please do at any point put your hand up, or just turn your microphone on and come on in. I do want this to be interactive. There are going to be certain points where I'm going to stop and make this interactive. So yeah, and if I can remember how to do the breakout rooms, I might even do a breakout room at some point. Can you remember how to do that, Mariana? Or maybe we might do that at some point. Do you know how to do breakout rooms?
Yes, well, I've recently changed to Teams, so I had learned in Zoom, so I can try to learn quickly while you're talking.
We'll
Let's
see.
see.
There might be certain points that I think might be useful to have a breakout room for
Yeah.
5 minutes or so. So we'll see how we get on. Okay. Let me share my slides then, and then I'll sorry for the long preamble. Sorry, that's the wrong thing. It was working before, wasn't it?
Yes, maybe just share your whole screen and then choose the one you want. Usually that's easier.
So I think it's because I've shut down my the PowerPoint. Should be all right now. Let's have a look. Apologies for this. There we go. Okay, can people see that? Okay.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
So the title of this workshop, which is the same as the title in Manchester when we had the opening conference, is Building Networks and Social Capital for a Paradigm Shift. So as you might well be aware, the whole point of cost is to build networks, to build social capital, to get scholars together. That includes academics, policymakers, practitioners, researchers. And so this is what I mean by us coming together, building networks and social capital. And Working Group 1 is very much about how we conceptualize career, how we conceptualize career guidance. So in many respects, Working Group 1 is asking for a paradigm shift. And you can see this in the Memorandum of Understanding. If you go on the COST website, that the project entitled Critical Perspectives on Career and Career Guidance. Working Group 1 is exploring the challenges and changes in career in the contemporary world, scrutinizing the concept of career and reconceptualize and recontextualize it for likely futures. Such changes are of the result of shifts in the social, technological, political, and economic context, where such changes still provide a continuity of resource allocation based upon class, gender, and ethnic lines. The group are to coordinate scholars across a range of countries to promote key activities such as webinars, which we are doing now, summer schools, scientific meetings, grant application, and academic outputs. So I think it would be really nice just to break the ice, really. And what I'd like to do is if people could put their hands up and just answer one of these questions, really, just to break the ice, get people involved and stop me doing a didactic delivery. So what motivated you to be involved in COST? It'd be nice to hear some motivations of why you wanted to be involved in this, why you're here today. If you're involved in research, what are your research interests? We're going to be spending a bit of time defining career today, so it'd be useful to know people's starting points, really, in terms of how would you define career. And obviously what we're trying to promote in this COST group and this working group is what does it mean to be critical? So I'm going to come out of the slideshow. So who would like to jump in? If I start off with what motivated you to be involved in COST? Is anyone feeling brave and would like to jump in? Please just use your little yellow hand and then we can invite you in. So what motivated you to want to be involved in COS? It'd be nice to break the ice and stop me being the only one talking. Who's feeling brave and would like to jump in?
I can do it if
Come on
there
in
is
then.
no one
I
else.
can't see you speaking, but just speak anyway.
Stania, you need to set somehow the organization of the people present in the talk, but I can't see the button for raising the hand. I'm sorry. Well, I wanted to say I was attracted by this critical moment of approaching the careers, because I did several previous research regarding it, and I couldn't sufficiently apply many of critical ideas I had. But to be honest, I have one question as well. This was like for the short introduction, because maybe not many of you remember me. I was I started to read this abstract for the lecture, and for me, this just listing of critical approaches and then using social capital was a bit intriguing, because I would like to hear how you think they actually can go together, or that there is a tension between using the terminology together. Thank you.
In terms of critical and social capital.
Exactly. The Frankfurt School, for example, I mean, they are difficult. There are different epistemological bases in it, and I don't know, but I don't think the terminology of social capital, even in terms of Bourdieu, or I guess you would go for explaining the term in that direction. But I believe there is a tension, and there is need to maybe be specific of how you would bridge this gap into what sort of critical approach actually is to be applied from your side.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's good to hear your. It's great to have you here, and thank you for breaking the ice. And yeah, it's good to hear your motivations. And like you, I was very motivated to want to get involved, because I've been involved in sort of critical perspectives in terms of career and career guidance. We are going to explore what we mean by critical in a moment. I am very much using social capital through a Bourdieu lens here. My thinking is that whilst there are definitely going to be tensions in how do you build capital, who gets to join together, and that's something that we can talk about. At the same time, I think unless we bring together scholars who want and have a desire for a critical perspective, then we are lacking in social capital. So that was my thinking about by using that term. But yeah, these are exactly the kind of conversation I want to provoke, and I know Mariana and Limor are in that direction as well. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for breaking the ice. If I could go to is it Huayo? Apologies if I've mispronounced your name wrong.
Yes, that's perfect, Richard. It is working. Sorry. Hi, everyone. So my name is João. I'm also Portuguese, at least as Mariana. I'm located in Portugal. Glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. So motivations. So I've been working a bit in the academic world and also as a practitioner, namely, not only namely developing like employee experience programs in software firms. I also been delivering some service in a platform company called The Forum that provides coaching services to professionals that present themselves as being in need for that. So really interested in this career topic in both perspectives, academic and as a practitioner also. This was one of the main reasons I've applied for this COS networking. So my interest in the topic and also in network by reference to this topic. Critical perspective is really interesting for me. I'm really inclined to all things related with Frankfurt School authors and the sense of those, Bourdieu, Foucault, even some deconstructionists like Derrida and others. So power of language, conflict, and all of that. So I really believe it's a fruitful avenue intersect this with this topic, the career development topic, and among some other authors. So not so into critical perspective. So I've been reading a bit on, for instance, a UK author called Charles Andy, quite a classical one from Oriental theory. He has this second curve concept that is like a different approach to careers, so more like a leftist approach to careers. So really into careers and all of that. So glad to be here, and looking forward to hear and learn a bit from you, Richard. Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah, and looking forward to learn from each other. So yeah, I mean, that sounds interesting stuff that you're reading. And what I'd recommend is if people are reading things or that are interested, please do put them in the chat, and then we can share our knowledge. And again, that's a way of building social and potentially cultural capital. So thanks for that. It's great to have you here, and thanks for your contribution. Rosario.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I'm basically a quantitative sociologist interested in education. These are my main research interests. Like in the past year, I worked on school-to-work transition and employability in higher education, which is kind of an emerging and not very assessed area in higher education. So yeah, like my interest in COST was basically it's like a platform that provides you like with a lot of social capital in a sense, and connection to people that are working in day-to-day career guidance, especially, which is like increasingly a topic that I'm interested in. And for me, what does it mean to be critical, also in line with Bourdieu, is like to be critics about especially the measures that we commonly use in social sciences and in general. So yeah, in my research, I try to apply and to dissect also like the measure that we are using and in line with the concept that are related to the measure. So for me, yeah, this is like a way to be critical.
Thank you very much. Yes. It's great to have you here, and yeah, that's exactly the kind of things that we're trying to promote. Those kind of, and yeah, really interested in the rise of metrics and the way in which they coerce particular performances, behaviors, and also invariably crystallize the status quo. So thank you for that, whilst pretending to be something else. So thank you for that input. Özlem is next.
Hi everyone. Hi Mariana. Hi Ricky. First of all, thanks a lot for this meeting. I hope it will be the beginning of really very fruitful and productive collaborative work for this year. Each time when I hear the participants, I realize that, you know, my motivation is a little bit different than everybody else, because I'm an economist and I'm an empirical economist. And when I listen all these, you know, explanations, I realize that my philosophical part is a little bit, you know, behind from all the other participants, because I'm looking at the data, I'm working with the data, and I'm trying to understand what the real world data telling me. And I'm a university professor. I was the head of career office because it's a small university, as well as my academic duty. I try to, you know, help university students on their career path, and for 3 years, as well as some economics course, I'm teaching career planning course at my university. And I'm from a country, Turkey, at which the only way to have a career is having a university education. This is what people think. If you are not a university graduate, you will not have a career. However, when I look at the data, I realize that it's not true anyway. Because when we look at the data, we can see that we have the highest number of university graduate and unemployed graduates in OECD. And when we look at the percentage of unemployed university graduates, it's higher than the average unemployment rate in Turkey.
Wow.
So there's a problem. So data tell me there's a problem. And yeah, I started to think about what should be the role of the university actually in this new career planning thing, because we are trying to teach people, we are trying to raise people, young generation in this world, but we are using some technique back to 1960s, 1970s, and it's really very apparent they don't work anymore. So I'm thinking about what we can do about it, how can we work on that, and I realized that there's a cost opportunity, and it was a little bit pragmatic, I have to confess, because I have to make a research. I'm in the academia, so I thought it will be really very good opportunity for me to have some international collaboration, have some academic work, as well as try to find the answers, the questions in my mind. So what should be the role of the university in this world, new world, contemporary world, and how can we help as a people in the academia to plan the career of the young generation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a really useful contribution. And I don't know whether it's reassuring that to hear that you're having similar challenges that we're experiencing in the UK as well. So, or that's unfortunate, but reassuring to hear it's not just the UK. It's Conan, if I pronounced it correct. I do apologize if I'm not getting people's names right.
Yeah, that's my last name. My first name is Lena.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
That's
Lena,
fine.
yes, sorry, I've met you. Yeah.
Yeah, we met
I'm making
in
sense of the
Wrocław last
connection now.
summer. Good to
Yes,
see you
of
here
course.
again.
How
and
are you
good to
doing?
see
You're right.
everybody else. I work as a career counselor in one of the universities in Finland, and then 20% I'm doing my PhD, and I'm here because of the criticality, and I think that I do meet a lot of kind of layman understanding about careers, and I think that our students are talking a lot about careers as a matching process, so they approach it as if it was a love marriage. And then, as the previous talker was also saying, that life and world has changed, and still I think there's so much, all these sayings about do what you love and money will follow, or put your mind into it and it will come true. And I think that how to kind of we tend to forget that there's also the structures. We tend to forget that people have different stuff in their backpack and they have different starting points. And I think that I'd like to kind of invite people in my community to think more criticality about careers. But I think that I always have this dream talk facing me, and I guess I want to come to a group of people that are a bit more like-minded and have also the critical aspects that I think are so important.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Great contribution. Maria, I think your hand's next, Maria.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Maria Carmen Panta, and I'm professor of sociology in Romania. I recently completed a research project on the career trajectories of the people with non-STEM degrees in a labor market that values technicalities highly. So we were interested in the career patterns of graduates from the social sciences and humanities. And I'm happy that you mentioned Ken Roberts. We were pleased to have him in a consultancy role for this project. Why cost? Because Tristan Hooley was inviting me at the time I was reading his books, and I was absolutely thrilled to be part of his group. What interests me, I think I'm very interested in the career concept, and I would provoke more thinking on what comes, and I'm interested to understand what comes after Bourdieu, because Bourdieu wrote 40 years ago in a rather socially homogeneous France, and I think that there is so much else going on, and in terms of how we conceptualize social class, the signaling value of the degrees, which is rather problematic. At least this is what we found in our research project. So I'm interested in these sorts of emerging criticalities that may appear. It's rather a risky and slippery ground, but I would be happy to join this thinking process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I agree with you. And so when I get back into the slideshow, we are going to be exploring a range of different sort of perspectives in relation, not just Bourdieu. But thank you for that. Yevgen Gia, have I pronounced it right? I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing people's names.
Yeah, my name is Evgenia Dehtyere. I'm from EKA University of Applied Science from Riga, Latvia. And I would like to thank you for gathering all of us here together. So that is my very first time when I meet with COST group members. And thank you for this opportunity. So now this is the first time when I will I finally will feel myself involved in the group. I am not only head of development of scientific institution, I'm also a coordinator of research group, Future Education and Competencies. And on other side, I'm also a certified career coach. And so I am motivated to be involved in COST actions as I'm interested to find new partners. Maybe some would like to join my research group. And also I'm interested in finding co-authors for publications. And my research interests are about everything related career development and education. And how I became career coach. I was vice rector for academic affairs in other institution. And during the pandemic period, I realized that my teaching staff is feeling very frustrated. And I have to motivate them to act and fastly in the changing circumstances of pandemic, and how to motivate them. So I understand that my knowledge and my skills of vice rector are not enough to motivate people to be more active during pandemic, to collaborate with students, with other teaching members more actively. And so I obtained a career coach certification. And this is how I became interested in developing competencies of teachers. So coaching of teachers, career development of teachers, these are my primary research interests. And up to me, my personal definition of career development is not only when you succeed something in your on your career way, but also when you feel yourself motivated and satisfied. So for me, a feeling of internal satisfaction is very important. And when we think about career development, we also have to think what should be done to achieve also this feeling of satisfaction, to keep and grow feeling of satisfaction for the employee. So that's about me, and I will be happy to meet new partners today. So I will try to be also active, and I will try to get everything to share your knowledge, to apply everything that you will be saying today.
Thank you very much for that very useful contribution. Meleki.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you again. And there are, I think, a lot of reasons to motivate me to be involved in this COST project. And one of these, I've been teaching pre-service teacher at the Faculty of Education in Turkey right now. And you know, we need to show some ways how a pre-service teacher can shape their career in the future. I think this is the first reason. But when I decided to join this course, especially I was doing my postdoctoral project at the University of Groningen, and I have been conducting some research on early career researchers. So, and when I went there, my supervisor motivates me to extend my knowledge on career in terms of critical theories such as intersectionality and decolonial. So I started to engaging in this framework. Now I have been conducting lots of research about it, but I think the first time I motivated in career with my doctoral thesis, because I studied academic identity construction and with doctoral students, and I used the framework of Bourdieu. So and the data showed me how social capital, economic capital, and cultural capital have been shaping people's career decision and the thinking behind why they decided to go on this career. And now I have been conducting some theses with my master students and work on career shocks, career construction theory. So I'm going to learn a lot from you in this platform, so I'm really excited about it.
Thank you very much. And it's very much a two-way street. We're all going to learn from each other, so I'm sure we'll learn from you as well, Meleke. So thank you for your contribution. Sanya, I see your hands up. Did you want to come back in? You're on mute.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I didn't say anything about my motivation to join. I mean, I said it before, but just to repeat it shortly. And also, I think it will add a new issue to the discussion. Basically, I also was very motivated. I'm research fellow at Institute of Criminological and Sociological Research, and I tried for a while to observe more people than data, I must say. I understand that as a critical component, but while I was doing my PhD, I noticed a lot of infrastructural problems, and referring to structural social structures and this aspect, also I understood how research infrastructure is very important. And I understand this engagement in cost as a sort of the opportunity to shift dynamics between very different research infrastructures that function in very different way. My career, for example, I wouldn't call it career. Now it became career, but it's very difficult, especially in small countries on the periphery with very weak infrastructure. And my thesis was on that. And I did also a Routledge edited volume on how this infrastructure is shaping epistemology as well. And then I think that this opportunity for cooperation and to shift the dynamics is offering also a sort of intervention that is very critical and a sort of chance for, let's say, redistribution between these divisions in very, very different research infrastructures in the West and, for example, in the Balkans and other countries. So that's from my side.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I know that's something that is dear to Cost in terms of making sure that we try to have as much exposure from the margins as much as the mainstream as well. And I know that Louise is joining us this afternoon. Is that correct, Mariana? And she'll be talking a bit more about those dynamics as well. I'm assuming Rosario, your hand is a legacy hand. Is that correct? You still got your hand up? I'll assume it's a legacy hand, and I'll go back to the PowerPoint now. So thank you very much. That has well and truly broken the ice, and I have chosen those questions on purpose because they are going to be in line with where we're going to be heading in this particular workshop. But without further ado, I think I will skip through this bit in particular. How we define career, I think, is going to be a really useful input today, and something that didn't come through clearly in people's articulations, which is fine, but it's something that I hope that we'll explore as we go through this. So what does it mean to be critical? So, I mean, there's what I'm going to do now is provide, I'm not going to do this justice at all. You know, I'm going to have a whistle-stop tour of criticality in about 5 minutes. And as I'm sure you're all aware, there is just, you know, volumes and volumes of literature out there, which could be described as critical. People mentioned the Frankfurt School. When you tend to think of critical theory, the Frankfurt School are the people that tend to come to mind. But there are obviously lots of schools of thought that could be linked into this idea of critical, many of which people talked about. So in sociology, Bourdieu could be described as critical. People talked about intersectionality. So what do we mean, though, in a nutshell, to be critical? And for me, I mean, I've looked at a range of sort of perspectives, definitions, but I keep coming back to this one by Goebbels and Beck, which Burke, which I'm going to summarize here, which is, I think for me, being critical is becoming more skeptical towards commonly accepted truisms and hierarchies. So it's about challenging truisms and hierarchies. So here's an example. You know, on average, the facts, I don't want to get all Nietzschean on you at this point in terms of there's always an element of value within facts. But when we look at the facts, when we look at the stats, you know, on average, men are paid, particularly in the UK, men are paid more than women when it comes to work. And so one common sense view on this, that I'm sure if we ask a lot of people might well believe that that's because men are just better at enacting career. But I'm sure everyone in the room would be very skeptical of this. They'd be skeptical of this truism, this form of hierarchy based upon patriarchy, because we would argue that there are many reasons as to why men earn more than women, which are structural. We've mentioned this word structural before, in terms of the kind of jobs that men do tend to have a history of being remunerated better. Women, obviously, I'm coming very much from a UK perspective, for centuries have been oppressed via patriarchy. So it would take more time for women to get to a point where they can start to earn as much as men, for example. And so we can see there are lots of structural issues around unions not letting women in for a long period of time, for example. In the war effort in the UK, women were invited into the labour market and then told to get back out once we ventured into peace times. So there are many ways in which we can talk about why there are differences in terms of payment in terms of men and women, and there are many different perspectives that we could take in relation to this. But I think all of what we're going to be looking at today, I personally feel will come back to this, coming back to being skeptical towards commonly accepted truisms and hierarchies. So what does it mean to be critical? I've got to thank Mariana for these slides. The Frankfurt School is something that comes to people's minds straight away when we start to talk about things like critical theory. So they make the claims that no science or knowledge is value-free. We always need to take into account the social and political interests that constrain knowledge construction. Who is saying what are their perspectives, what are their biases, how are people, this came through in what was being spoken about just before we venture back in, which is, you know, who has the infrastructure to promote their knowledge. Yeah, what is seen as knowledge that can be trusted, and what are the biases and the social and economic and political structures that shape knowledge. And we're very much into the realms of sort of epistemology there. So we need to consider the socio-economic and political origins of individual experiences, that we're all positioned differently in terms of our social position, that social science that critiques social institutions by exploring power, hegemonies, and social inequality to question the naturalization and reification of social phenomena. So the social science should be utilized to question power, to question hegemonies, and question social inequality. And very much in line with the Goebbels and Burke, what I was talking about before, the way in which social structures naturalize truisms and hierarchies, social science should be utilized to deconstruct and dismantle such power constructions. And the Frankfurt School proposed individual and collective liberation through dialectical reflection, critique, and navigation of the status quo to construct possible alternatives of the world and reality. So very much influenced via Marx's adage of it's not just enough to interpret the world, our task is also to challenge and change and transform the world. As well as the Frankfurt School, there is starting to be more utilization of post-structuralism in the recent social justice turn in career studies. Foucault in particular seems to be a scholar that career theorists are utilizing to take a critical stance on career. So Foucault is very famous for his discourse analysis, where he highlights that discourses, the way in which speech and writing is framed, transmits and produces power. It reinforces it, but also undermines and exposes it. Discourse is not simply that which translates struggles or systems of domination, but is the thing for which and by which there is struggle. Discourse is the power which is to be seized. And Ross was talking about this early on when he introduced himself around the idea of things like metrics produce a form of discourse, how things are measured, how things are operationalized, will shape the way in which people understand concepts. And we need, Foucault is very interested in how can we understand the power dynamics in such discourses. He also brings forward the notion of governmentality, the conduct of conduct, or the art of government, where government includes a wide range of control techniques that make subjects governable. Therefore, one might approach governmentality basically as a regulated field of power in the overlay between self and society, where the ideas of government and mentality coalesce. So he's very interested in the way in which language via power structures shapes people's behaviors, their ways of being, their understanding of themselves, the way they police themselves as well. Very much in the French post-structural domain, we also have Jacques Derrida, who is very interested in the endeavor of deconstruction. He's famous for his deconstruction. In particular, his deconstruction of binary concepts to reveal the political intent in hierarchical forms: white over black, male over female, work over leisure, rationality over irrationality. Can be ways in which we can start to think about career that deconstruct these power dynamics. Deleuze is someone who's generally overlooked in the career studies field, but I know some people were starting to gain interest in Deleuze. He reveals the dynamics of societies of control, very much taking forward Foucault's notions of disciplinary societies and starts to move it into the domain of societies of control. So a shift from disciplinary societies characterized by enclosed institutions like schools and prisons to more fluid and pervasive forms of control, very much in line with the post-industrial societies that many of us frequent. In these societies, control is continuous and decentralized, operating through networks and technology to regulate behavior and manage populations. We have had people talk about decolonial perspectives, which is starting to rear its head in the career studies field since its social justice turn. And I think it's worth highlighting that decolonization is both a means of returning stolen land to indigenous people, as well as exposing, deconstructing, and challenging coloniality. the ongoing structures of domination that still permeate all areas of the Europeanized world that has occurred since the 17th century and the creation of the New World of the Americas. So when we're taking a decolonial approach, we're both looking at the way in which resources are stolen and distributed in the capitalist neo-colonial order, as well as venturing into elements of epistemology as well, how such flows of materials are justified via a colonial logic. That's very much centered on the Europeanized world being the sort of datum of human existence and history. So decolonial perspectives highlight that global capitalism depends upon coloniality, racism, and patriarchy. Many decolonial scholars very much want to look at the way in which patriarchy, capitalism, and racism are all interconnected projects, and they're interconnected via their othering of certain groups of people to benefit the supposed superiority of others. So we have seen a recent social justice turn. People have mentioned the work of Tristan Hooley and colleagues who wrote 2 edited volumes in the late teens, which have made a real splash in the career world and career studies, which emphasize this social justice, the recent social justice turn. And much of this work provides a critique on neoliberalism, the prevailing social, political, economic order, and leaning on Foucault, that it's a form of the conduct of conduct. So David Harvey, I've seen Mariana has placed David Harvey's book in the comments, which is great. And please, everyone, do use the comments to share books and papers that you think people will find useful. Describes neoliberalism as the logic that promotes free trade, capital flows, outsourcing, anti-labor policies, privatization, deregulation, upper class tax cuts, and cuts in social spending, with a shift in fiscal responsibility from the rich and wealthy to the individual, resulting in massive inequalities in wealth across the globe and across nations. And we see the influence of this in some of the articulations in the icebreaker as well, around certain countries being placed at the margins and having infrastructures that mean it's difficult to enact research. We've also heard about how neoliberalism has created precarious labour markets, even for those who have studied at higher education might find themselves in a position of unemployment or underemployment. So what does career mean to you? So I'd like you to consider different discourses that you might engage with every day. So what I've provided there is, I'm going to come out of this now, I've provided sort of like a whistle-stop tour of some critical perspectives. I hope it's included many that you would be interested in, or some that you've not heard of before but would like to know more about. But I really would like you to, I think this is where it might be useful. Mariana, is it possible to put people in maybe, say, three or 4 groups?
Yep.
Breakout?
Yes, I've seen how you can do it. Just let me know whenever you want me to try and do it, and it will put people randomly in Brilliant. 4 rooms.
And so what I'm going to do,
is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the chat the questions as well, so that people can make a note of that. So I want you to think about, what does career mean to you? And let me just put that in. Because what I want us to start to try and think about is, how do these critical perspectives, because let's be honest, career studies leans on other disciplines, doesn't it? It tends to take from other disciplines and then brings it into the field of career. So it is very much linked to notions, philosophical notions feed into career studies, and then we have a different perspective on career. So I want you to think about this concept of career. The thing that I should imagine is bringing us all together, this concept, career. And I would like you to, in the breakout rooms, I would like you to consider, what does career mean to you? And when you're thinking about this, consider the different discourses you might engage with. So the everyday, policy, practice, theoretical. So yeah, if we could have, should we have just, if we could, 10 minutes, let's have 10 minutes. Yes, so it's about 33 minutes past the hour.
Okay.
So can you do the magic, Mariana?
Yes, I still don't know how to get back, but I know how to create the 4 rooms. So I hope we can meet again in 10 minutes. See you soon. Okay. It looks like this is our room, I think. Let's see. We don't have many people in this room. Yeah. No. Maybe we weren't assigned? I don't understand.
It seems like there is only 2 of us here.
So, yeah, but this was supposed to be a room with 7 people. Yeah, Cheryl, Kobe Gaskill. Yeah, Sanya, where are you?
I see you, but I don't see anyone else.
Okay. Let me see what we can do. I think.
Oh,
Okay.
they're muted. There is Cheryl,
Cheryl?
and she's muted. Maybe she didn't realize she's muted and she's talking to us.
But I think Cheryl is supposed to be in room 2, and you, where are you? Sanya. I think. May I assign you?
Yes, of course. I mean.
Okay. Let me. How can I do it? Okay, Sanya. Yes. Yeah, you're the only one who isn't.
I think this magic doesn't work on me.
I don't understand what's happening. Oh, it says that you can't access simultaneous rooms because of your account, the way it's managed by your organization. Okay.
Because it's not managed by organization, it's private.
Yeah, maybe it's that. I don't know.
It's paid, it's like upgraded, but it's not managed by the organization. That's not possible technically.
Well, if you don't mind, do you mind talking with me?
I don't, but I'm very sorry. I didn't know that can be an issue.
Sorry?
Yeah. I didn't know it could be an issue for organization of your groups.
No, but I don't think it should, because there are other people here who aren't also. So.
But it's for Microsoft Teams is an issue because, for example, I wanted to take part in some reading group, Faculty of Political Science, and I couldn't establish any connection with them. It's impossible.
Okay.
So at least I can participate in the meeting, but yeah, there is an issue of connection. I really don't think that it was necessary to work on this way, but obviously there is.
I'm sorry for this, but we can talk
about
this.
No, don't worry. Yeah, of course.
So, how we engage with everyday discourse, policy discourse, practice discourse, and theoretical discourse on what career means. So, do you want to start?
I can start. I think I will inspire you to take from my perspective, which is very difficult for you, I guess. Well, I don't believe actually people here in the Balkans speak that much about career. To be honest, I was thinking about it since the beginning of this meeting. Mostly people want to get hired, find job, and like I want to find job. And there is no this organizational. I think it's much more specific for liberal societies. There is not that much culture of in institutions, especially higher education, there is no this sort of, I mean, career advising was recently, and career center called like that was recently established at University of Belgrade, but it doesn't work like in other countries, to be honest, like recognize that well, or really helping people to manage the gap. And since the job infrastructure is very difficult, many people struggle between these phases. So I don't think they would understand their position as sort of the description career could be subscribed to their situation. But
Okay.
however, once you get into the position like I am currently, and if you had clear goal and try to make some linear progress, you would understand, of course, and be able to talk in all these aspects what career means. So it's very interesting how professionally many of the aspects here, because of this infrastructural problem, I believe, initially, cannot have this effect and power like associations. There are some now, there is sociological, for example, scientific association, and like all of them try to, there are several that try to establish, but then they are very closed. I mean, I was even deleted from my group on adult education because I moved to sociology for master's degree, and then to faculty of political sciences for my PhD. And then I said, I never understand this adult education pedagogy approach. And I never, during the studies, I was always using sociological approach. And they don't want to cooperate with me, for example.
So basically what you're talking about is the boundaries between disciplines are very, very strict, and people don't want to work together. Is that it?
You wouldn't really understand how it is strong in practice, because people literally, I mean, criminology in the UK, for example, is placed in a faculty of social sciences, and everyone is criminology. Of course. And we here in the Institute, they understand interdisciplinary as we are all together, but we don't speak together. We don't discuss as we deal with the same problem, which is very, for me, still shocking how deeply this goes, especially research and teaching, but even stronger.
Okay, so Mustafa, Roberts, Raza, Maur, we are discussing what career means, and then we move to transdisciplinary approaches on everyday life, policy, practice, theoretical approaches. So what does career mean? That is the discussion that is taking place now in subgroups, and then we'll return to the big one. So any ideas on what career means to you? Yeah, Robert, you were going to say something?
No, it's hard to say. It depends from what kind of approach you take it, and also on your psychological profile, because some allow career, some people allow other things, and they prefer to career just to earn money. And the question is like there is some theoretical or practical, like 2% people have careers, less than 2%, and all other people have jobs. And there are some doctors who have careers, some lawyers, famous doctors, famous academicians, some entrepreneurs, and all the others have just the jobs. So that is one view.
Maur, do you want to go?
Hi.
Hi.
Big question.
Big question.
Well, yeah, I guess career for me, or in my opinion, is the way, you know, that people do during their life, their work life. And I think it's a very good question nowadays, because we meet a lot of young people who doesn't necessarily want to have a career as career is in the previous, you know, understanding of what is career. They want comfortable job, they want other things. But I guess that many people still want to have like a meaningful career or a meaningful way in their occupational life. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other ideas on the meaning of career and the various potential meanings of career? Patricia, Mustafa, Raza? No, I was just thinking that, I don't know if you know that Tristram Hooley and Ree Thompson just recently published a very short and straightforward, simple kind of scientific dissemination book on that basically tries to reflect on that and to deconstruct this idea of career as something that only some can have access to, as something that entails linear progression. So that could be a way into, and they have done some workshops, and I think the dissemination of that book and the workshop that they did is in the COCAG website. Sorry, I'm gonna mute you and tell her. So, and the dissemination of this book, the book is free. You can have it online. And it's more of it's more aimed at everyone, and not necessarily academics or practitioners, but at everyone who wants to think about their career. And so they've done these workshops with unions, with people from I don't know, doctors at a hospital, and the workshop is a dissemination of the book, but also aims to make people reflect on their careers and how their decisions are so influenced by structural dimensions, by their families, by their personal experiences. And so basically deconstructing this idea of a career as something that is only dependent on agency and rational decision making and your very, very reflected aims, I would say. Any other ideas on this, and what is career for you? And
can you say the name of the book again?
I can look. Okay, let's do the. I think we are getting to the 10 minutes that. So I'm doing a little bit of organizing too. So we're getting to the end of the 10 minutes that Ricky proposed. So maybe I'm gonna close the rooms and I'm gonna share the COCAG website where they are disseminating the workshop and the book. Okay, maybe I'll do that when we're all together. So see you soon. Hi there, we're coming back. I was strict with the 10 minutes. I think that was okay, right?
Yeah, it was good. Thank you for that. And I think I appreciate that it was a little bit jumpy at parts, and maybe people were starting to say something and didn't finish, but it's not a problem, because I think it really served the purpose I was hoping it would serve, was just again breaking the ice, get people talking, but really gets to start to think about something that I think a lot of academics overlook a lot in the career studies field, which is, what do we actually mean when we're using this word career? And I can remember, like, when I was doing my doctorate, reading a whole host of sort of career development theory, and many times I would be thinking, well, how are they utilizing this word career? And when they would define career, it would be quite a narrow sort of perspective on career. So and it very much reflects, I think, the 20th century conceptualizations of career rather than where I think we're heading. So let me share back my my screen, and I will reveal why I thought it was useful to kind of have that conversation. So I wanted you to consider, so going back to Foucault, remember Foucault talks about discourse transmits and produces power, it reinforces it, but also undermines and exposes it. Discourse is not simply that which transmits struggles or systems of domination. This is the important bit, but it's the thing for which and by which there is struggle. Discourse is the power which is to be seized. So if discourse is framing our understanding of the very concept that brings us together, career, what are the discourses? How do they frame career? And what are the power dynamics that are at play in how we frame career? Now, I have to say, in the group I was in, it was quite interesting around the idea that when we first started talking about career, it was very much around this idea of, I will go to this, it was very much around this idea of work. And what I want to try and get us to do is to start explore career critically, start with the founding concept that we're working with. And I would argue that the everyday discourse of career was very much in line with many of the articulations that I heard in the room. And I've done this work in numerous environments. I've done it with students, I've done it with all levels, I've done it to the general public, I've done it in offending institutions. And I get a very, very similar response when I ask, what is career and what does it mean to people and how do they use that word in everyday discourse? And I would argue that everyday discourse of career promotes individualization. So it's about the individual. And I definitely heard that in some of the conversations that I had in terms of the idea of people talk about individual personal development. So it's an individualizing concept. It's very hard to think of career and not think of paid work. It very much links, it's everyday discourse, particularly in the UK, is linked to paid work. And I think it's difficult to think about career without thinking about the idea of linear progress, or people talked about an uplifting trajectory. And we can see this in, I think dictionaries, particularly online dictionaries, are really good sources to look at everyday language and how how words are utilized in everyday language. And the Oxford Online Dictionary describes career as a course of professional life or employment which affords opportunity for progress or advancement in the world. And it's my emphasis there. So notice how in this definition, work via the guise of employment, paid work, and progress are central to this definition. And it's no different if we look at the online Cambridge Dictionary. The job, a series of jobs that you do during your working life, especially if you continue to get better jobs and earn more money. So there's definitely this idea of career being work-centric and has this idea of progression. It has to progress. And so I was starting to ask this question just before we moved out the room, who gains from such perspectives? So Working Group 1 is looking to reframe such perspectives, and we're going to talk today about why we might want to do this. I would argue it's because we're starting by doing this. I'm enacting deconstruction here. We're deconstructing the concept of career. We're looking at how it's formulated and the important sort of political, philosophical foundations that it's resting on. It's resting on this idea of paid work that follows a hierarchy. It follows this idea of progress. And that serves, quick answer, that serves the capitalist class. And what I want to do now is I want to sort of home in on this idea of progress, which I've written about it's one of my obsessions. I've written about this on numerous occasions because I think it's very, very central to our understanding of career in particularly in policy, particularly in the everyday, and in much of the career development literature. So I'm going to provide 3 critiques of progress. And the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize the work of social anthropologist Ernst Gellner. Gellner describes progress as a secularized salvation. He talks about the way in which the picture of the world growth story, also merits the name of the education of the human race theory. One clear source of its appeal was that it conceived the story of the cosmos, and especially human history, in the manner analogous to the way in which middle-class people conceive and justify their lives. The period of the belief in progress was also notoriously a bourgeois period. A middle-class life is essentially a career. Its education already tends to be long and marked by a self-conscious series of upward steps, and its subsequent pattern is equally, or is intended to be, a continuous ascension, whether in wealth or along the rungs of some hierarchy, or both. If an individual life is validated in such a manner, what could be more than natural than that the life of mankind as a whole, or indeed the life of the cosmos, should have a similarly gratifying pattern? The reason why I'm using Gellner's work here is sort of make apparent the sort of undercurrent that is in much of the discourse of career, particularly in policy as well. We really see this in policy. The idea of graduate outcome surveys, that graduates need to get high-skilled jobs, that they need to be progressing. Think of how the whole of education is based on this idea of progress. You progress from one level to the next, and then the next, and then you graduate, and then you go into post-graduation, etc., etc. And working career tends to follow these socially constructed hierarchies as well. The idea of you start off in a graduate position, if you're lucky enough, and then you work up the ladder into management positions. And what comes from this as well is that we are coerced into thinking in this particular way in our everyday language, in our everyday actions, how we shape our work. But also, if we do not fit within this schema, we feel like a failure because it's individualized. So I really like this phrase, a secularized salvation. It gives us meaning as well in terms of and he's leaning very much on Nietzsche when he was writing about this, around God, that we kill God at the marketplace. And then what happens with a loss of God and the secularization of society? What becomes our salvation? And Gellner suggests that it is progress that becomes our secular salvation. And again, I kind of heard this in some of the discussions I had before as well, around this urge to want to see career as personal development or success in improving oneself. And I'm not dissing that. I'm just sort of suggesting that what happens if you feel like you're not progressing personally? Is that your fault? How do we look at that in the round in terms of sociologically, politically, philosophically, economically? The next theorist I'd like to use is another French. This is a French post-structural philosopher who I didn't mention previously, but it's definitely a contemporary of Deleuze, Derrida, and Foucault, and that's Paul Virilio. Paul Virilio, his work was based on the notion of speed, what he calls dromology, a study of speed. And he talks about, again, I'm utilizing this work to critique progress. He critiques progress via the notion of a propaganda of progress and a cult of speed. As he highlights in his Open Sky book in 1998, we've experienced redundancy of human muscular strength towards the machine during the 19th century, toward a permanent unemployment, challenging the need for human memory with the recent increase in computers and transfer machines, automating perception with computer-aided design, and the horizon of mass artificial intelligence market. What Virilio is trying to argue for in here is, with supposed technological developments, what they are perceived to be good at is increasing speed. But with every advancement comes what he describes as a derailment. So, utilizing the myth of Icarus, he highlights that with the advent of the railway comes the advent of derailment. With the invention of the car, we get the car crash. With the aeroplane, the plane crash. What he's trying to highlight to us is that we become obsessed with this idea of speed of production, speed of communication, speed of everyday behavior, which includes the automation of behavior as progress. But he's providing a sort of a shadowy side to that. And he describes progress as becoming a propaganda via a cult of speed. And the final sort of strand of where I'd like to critique progress is the utilization of decolonial scholars. In particular, I find the work of Kindy Andrews very useful in this particular area, to provide a critique of what can be described as the coloniality of power. So how colonial logic, how colonial discourse creates power to serve the West at the expense of others. And as Andrews points out, the Enlightenment was essential in providing the intellectual basis of Western imperialism. The Enlightenment provided justification for genocide, slavery, and colonialism that are utterly indispensable to Western progress. So progress becomes the justification for these abhorrent acts, but it places it on the lighter side of the supposed Enlightenment, where if you read the work of Wengrow and Graeber was stolen from indigenous North American scholars, but that's another matter. Progress becomes the justification for such acts. And that's not to say that we live in a truly post-colonial world. As Andrew points out, the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, and World Trade Organization all play their part in administering colonial logic and neo-colonialism. So as mentioned previously, colonialism is about stealing resources and allocating resources towards the imperial center at the cost of others, and it provides a justification through these notions of progress, suppose human progress. I do need to provide a content warning here. It really is quite astonishing when you start to dive into some of the supposed Western Enlightenment thinkers and how open they are with their racism. And Andrews does a great job in relation to this. For example, Kant using pseudoscience to advise the most effective way to beat the indolent Negro. Locke, Negroes are the product of African women sleeping with apes and therefore subhuman. And I'm sure many of you, like me, were leaning on these Enlightenment thinkers at the start of your studies, as the supposed, Western Enlightenment thinkers that provide the idea of human progress. And yet this human progress is based upon a very extreme form of coloniality. I'm going to pause it there. I'm going to come back out because I appreciate I've thrown an awful lot at you, and I would be very interested in people's views. What do you reckon? Are we welded to this idea of progress? What are your views on such criticisms of progress, particularly in relation to career? The floor's yours. Duska, please do come in.
Hi again to everybody. Let me just briefly introduce myself again. I'm Duška Franeta. I'm a university professor from Serbia in Novi Sad. And I teach philosophy of law and ethics. And first, I would like to thank you for a very clear introduction, and I would agree to the most of the contents you shared with us. But I would also say that I would not support the full anti-enlightenment position, since I think that enlightenment also significantly contributed to critical perspectives. I'm, of course, very well aware of the critiques of the progress, of the idea of progress that maybe first started from Heidegger, Adorno, and Horkheimer in their famous book, Dialectics of Enlightenment. But I would say that the Enlightenment, in some of its strands, significantly contributed to the idea of emancipation. And that was a very important part of Enlightenment project, although all the other critiques, in my opinion, are founded. There are these strands of Enlightenment, like mathematic and scientific strand, that I wouldn't, in my opinion, Immanuel Kant does not belong to that strand of Enlightenment. That this critique could be applied to that strand of Enlightenment, but not to the full corpus of Enlightenment thinkers. So that's just my remark, since I come from the field of philosophy.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and I'd be really keen to continue that discussion in a lot more detail that probably this forum won't allow. If I could just have one quick response to that, which is around, I agree with you. Yeah, from European Enlightenment comes the idea of critique, emancipation, blah de blah. But is it necessarily always an emancipation for everyone? Is where I think decolonial scholars would come in. But like I said, I'd love to continue that another time. I appreciate other people want to come in, and maybe we might have a bit of time later on. So, but yeah, I appreciate I'm touching on nerves here, and that's the whole point of being critical, I would argue. But I like the fact that we can go more into depth around this notion of Enlightenment, what it served us, and who is it served. Yeah, most definitely. Thank you very much for your contribution. Sanya?
From this group process, I continue thinking of, and then Duška actually gave me a few hints, because I'm really struggling to define my own position, to be honest. And for me, this internal struggle, I would call, inside the critical theory itself, is very important, but also for understanding Korea, it's important to put it in a single narration and to understand it as a mission and profession. And I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Enlightenment was the movement that introduced profession as such. For the first time, intellectuals were in this sense important. They had this importance of who they are, why they do that. They had mission of advocating cause. They wanted to distribute science to everyone. They prepared encyclopedia and etc. etc. I think inside the Enlightenment, the career as concept was built, and there are authors claiming so. It's not now on my mind, but there are. I can give you references later. On another hand, as someone who actually went into discussion with my edited volume for Routledge with Madina Tlostanova, and she's really this strong decolonial approach that is actually has not that much to do with colonial as such in sense of colonies, but it's like they understand decolonization as intellectual process, and then local and global are into play in this level. And like Enlightenment, there is a dark side on Enlightenment, and I'm sorry. There is this dark element of Enlightenment, but they go on into total deconstruction of what intellectuals should represent. They come and say, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not even critical. Okay, but we want to, they call it unlearn process of these all hierarchies we collected in our representation, in our memory, in our epistemologies, and we work through them. So in a way, I wanted to add this aspect as well, because we are always from somewhere, and we need this narration. And what is even more interesting, I think, because not every work is career, it cannot be, you need something important in this social and broader sense, some sort of mission that is public mission. But these post-colonial scholars, I think, are people, despite this career crisis, to whom this career concept can be applied very well, because they indeed had a program. Madina Tlostanova from Russia went to Sweden. I mean, you can have this very, let's say, a bit you know, big narration, and you can see her own how to say, unity of her progress, and also from east to west, from local to global. So I just wanted to put those hints. I'm just thinking through. I hope they were useful, and maybe some kind of feedback, and to give other space to talk.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I really like the way you talk about if I read it right, like you were talking about that sort of personal tension, and how the personal tension comes with position as well. And that's partly why I wanted to, and I'm talking for Mariana and Limor here, I'm sure as well, like the whole idea of Working Group 1 is to have these kind of conversations, you know, what shapes our conceptions of career. And
may I add just one term? I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah,
because they call it positionality, and like whatever you do, and however we observe work from anyone else, it has to be positioned within geopolitical and blah blah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, and I think the reason why I was really quite taken by the sort of decolonial scholars is because, as you rightly show, we're all sort of positioned, and here we're positioned nationally, yeah, and but that it does relate to a bigger sort of nexus of social power and, you know, global capital, which is becoming very detrimental to people's life, and I haven't even gone to the eco sort of dimension here, which would be another critique of progress that I'm working on as well, which I haven't had time to sort of build upon as well. That if we carry on with this supposed progress of neoliberal capitalism, it will is likely to end in the death of the planet, or uninhabitable for human beings. I'm sure the planet will carry on. It's just we won't. But yeah, I mean, I think the point I'm trying to make is this working group. So I should imagine there's going to be different sort of feelings in the room. So there's going to be some people like Duska and Sanya are straight in and sort of like, well, hang on a minute, you need to think about this and that. And that's precisely what I'm trying to do, is to provoke people to think roundly. And I'm challenging my views. There might be some people here who are just like, whoa, this is a lot deeper than I thought we were going to be. We're going to be thinking about career. But I think when you start to think about this idea of discourse and how it shapes policy, how it shapes practice, how it shapes education, how it shapes our conceptions around something like career, it's really important that we take the time to really think about our position. And as I move on in the workshop, I'm going to sort of highlight why that's important. Was there any other comments at this particular point? But thank you very much and I'd really love to keep the conversation going with both Sanya and Duska. I'd particularly like to learn more about Kant's position in relation to what I was saying, because I have to confess I haven't read an awful lot of Kant. So are there any other sort of reactions, observations to the critique on progress? Okay, I'll take the silence as a no. Please feel free to jump in or use the comments if there's something you would like to add. I'm going to sort of head on to the home straight now, really, in relation to the workshop. The next slide I'm going to show you, it comes from, it's an illustration from the book by Friedman and Lawrenson, sociologists who use Bourdieu in their book, The Class Ceiling. It predominantly focuses on the UK, which is obviously class obsessed, but I think there are useful findings within this that could easily translate to other settings. I think this particular image is very, very striking, which is why I wanted to spend a little bit of time looking at this. So on this left-hand side here, we have this is a figure which describes the flows from origins to destinations in the UK. So we have three colours here. We have a sort of like purple, maroony type colour, a sort of amber colour, and a sort of turquoise colour here, and they denote different class origins. So what they highlight is that this sort of maroony type purple colour is working class origins. The amber is intermediate, and the turquoise is professional or managerial. So sort of presenting sort of lower, middle, and upper class. And then they do some longitudinal study, predominantly through a Bourdieusian lens. And what they highlight is that the majority of people starting from a working class position will remain in a working class position, with very, very few making it to elite occupations. Likewise, there is some movement in the sort of amber area and some in the turquoise, but predominantly we find that the class you are born into is likely to dictate where you end up in, or if you end up in the labour market, which is very in line with the work of Ken Roberts that I mentioned before. His proposition has always been that class is the biggest determinant of where someone ends up in the labour market, and also and also is a means of shaping our perceptions in relation to the labour market. They also utilize aspects of intersectionality, and they look at gender in relation to this. So in this figure, women are underrepresented in most top jobs. So we see in the UK that we have a very patriarchal society, and it's the longer the line, the more representation there is of women in top professions. And what's quite interesting is that we see that the public sector is the highest in terms of female representation, which is the area that's most likely to be cut in times of austerity as well. So we can see that there's a real politics at play in relation to the labour market, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. They also do this in terms of looking at class and gender and payment, highlighting the gender pay gap, but they are also highlighting the importance of class. In their analysis, they always emphasize this sort of staggered approach, which relates to your class origin is going to be a big predictor of how much you're paid, as well as your gender. I appreciate I'm going through this quite quickly, but do feel free to read this book. It's very useful in thinking about these sort of class dynamics. I appreciate it predominantly concentrates on the UK, but I'm sure that there's much that would translate to other settings. And they also utilize intersectionality to look at how class relates to ethnicity. And again, you see this sort of staggered approach showing the emphasis of how important class is. So what's this all about, you might well be thinking. So I want to sort of highlight how this relates to and translates to policy and practice. So there's a long tradition in the career education and guidance literature. I'm thinking in particular, Watts is a prominent writer that looks at the ideology and how that plays out in policy and practice in career education and guidance. And I've utilised the work of both Watts and Mignot to come up with a more simple schema, which I published in 2022, which is that CG, from my perspective, tends to incorporate three ideological standpoints. The conservative standpoints looks to socialise individuals into employment roles and opportunities that are realistically available to them. So the emphasis on the conservative one is social control. What we tend to find, I would argue, in most settings in terms of career education and guidance is a liberal approach, which is about raising the aspirations of individuals from deprived and disadvantaged groups to adopt the dominant value systems of society. So the emphasis on these particular ideological positions is about individual change. And what I think I'm trying to advocate for, and I'm sure Limor and Mariana would support this, is that I think Working Group 1 is trying to promote, in line with this idea of criticality, a radical approach. So this approach is about acknowledging the inequality that is existing in economic structures and its power relations. The radical position holds that solutions must address this structure rather than the notion of deficits in individuals or groups. It's very much advocating for social change. So it's about looking at career, the concept of career and the idea of career development from a much broader lens than just the individual agency and individual desires. Okay, so I think we'll be bold enough to put you back into rooms again. So if you could spend another 10 minutes, I'd like you to consider a research project that you've completed or are currently involved in, where you might where might your work fit in these ideological schemas? Is it critical? If not, how might you reframe the research so that it is critical? And do please try and discuss this with other people. Again, I'll put this in the chat so people have got it. Have we got time to put people in rooms for 10 minutes, Mariana? Would that be okay? Yep, brilliant. So I'll put this in the chat. So do want you to think about these. Oops, excuse me. Let me put the right thing in the chat. So think about this idea of is your work critical? So I've put that in the chat. Yeah, and if you can do your magic, Mariana, 10 minutes, and then we'll be on the home straight, hopefully.
We're going now. See you soon. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we have room 1 with 8 people, room 2 with 8 people, room 3 with 7 people, and room 4 with 7 people. And for some reason, we're here, the 3 of us. Again,
now it's free, not only me and you.
Let's see if I can do something. Okay, 2 unassigned. Yeah, I don't know why you're unassigned, but we can talk the 3 of us, if you don't mind. Okay, so our task is to discuss if we have been doing, to consider a research project that we have completed or are currently involved in. Where might your work fit in the ideological schema? Is it critical? If not, how might you reframe the research so that it becomes critical? Okay, so who wants to start? Do you want to start, Sanya? Fatma?
I can. Fatma, do you want to start? I can, it's not a problem, but I would also leave floor for Fatma if she is ready to talk. No? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, to be honest, yes, I wanted to do critical research since I was in this Department of Education, adult education, and I was so interested in social theory, and they didn't like that because that's not the type. They were oriented psychology or like philosophical conceptions, at least some weaker ones. And I wanted theoretical and empirical research and critical and wanted to develop it. I was interested in early social utopian thought and thought their work on education. And then I started really to read, when I was very young, everything that was considered with social alternatives. So all my life, most of it, despite the period when I was not sure whether I can do research, because I always wanted to do research, not teaching. I mean, some teaching, but I don't like teaching that much because I don't like repeating. And then eventually I did like also critical analysis of Bologna process for master thesis. And then I really wanted to somehow, because Marxism was very, very unpopular, of course, in Serbia after fall of Yugoslavia. Yeah. And I really see the power of this shift epistemological that came with Marxism and dialectics, and I see power in this method still, but then it's very hard. And I wanted to do thesis about research because I understood that it is not defined in infrastructure of such a small country. Simply is not. That's a problem. As a skill, as a profession, researcher is not differentiated that much, and then it is isolated, but that's not the same. Like you're not recognized as researcher. And I decided to do analysis of research infrastructure, and I did PhD thesis on influence of process of globalization on research policy in Serbia. And I wanted to use critical approach, and I used a neo-Marxist approach.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to think, what is exactly my critical approach? And I'm still thinking. I also experimented with critique of Tlostanova because entire collection is response to her work. And actually the point is that like we need infrastructural research. We cannot just come and say it's us and we want to be free from structures and move across the structures. That's very idealistic and very naive. You know, I couldn't think in that way. But also I use Wallerstein. Wallerstein is very how to say, classical thinker in terms of positivistic this element that for me was restraining a bit.
Of course.
And I couldn't actually develop my own approach, but to keep it short because other people joined us. And previous time I just didn't notice that they joined. I'm very sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I continue talking. I would like to develop sort of critical approach that actually is capable to foresee this overview of conjuncture and contribute to shift of understanding like a real situation by counterposing structure and agency in a way that was imagined in like emancipatory model in Marxist theory. That's my idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds very ambitious. I'm sorry, but that's
yes, but it's a very interesting approach. If Andriana, Mehmet, Fatma want to intervene, please feel free to do that. I have just summarized what we were discussing. So basically, Ricky proposed us to think about research projects that we have completely or are involved in, and think about how it fits in the ideological schema that he was just proposing. So if it's conservative, liberal, over radical in terms of a critical approach. If it's critical, if not, how you could reframe it so that it becomes more critical, because the aim of this cost action and the aim of this working group is to develop critical approaches both to theory, to policy, and to practice. So then to try to write a research question that reframes the research to be as critical as possible. Do you want to jump in any way? Fatma, Andriana, Mehmet? Okay, if not, Sanya, I would like to ask you if you could share the authors you were discussing. And when you were talking about this relationship between structure and agency, that reminded me of also something that I can share in the meanwhile. But I think that is one of the greatest conundrums that we have to reflect on, because it is the fact that we have to acknowledge the impact of the social, economic, and political structure and how it constrains us, but at the same time, how we are active human beings who can intervene in this social context, who can transform it. And this is also relevant for career development, for how people navigate their lives, how they interact with others. And usually what happens is that psychological approaches just focus on agency and obliterate the rest of the dimensions. And that's why I think this what Ricky is also sharing with us is so important. And this idea that, for example, what he was talking about when he was talking about the Enlightenment, yes, the Enlightenment may have developed these emancipatory approaches, but for whom? Not all of them. Yeah.
That's true. I mean, we need to rethink critical theory. There are some focal elements. I think that one of very, very important elements is in program of Frankfurt School. This idea about interdisciplinarity seems to be much more radical than we originally thought.
Of course, it is. It is.
In practice, it's very hard to bring not only agency but sense of science. You know, we go for problems. We don't go start from I want to continue with my discipline and I'm doing discipline. I'm applying in the. I mean, this sort of reproduction is not useful for anyone. And there are, of course, I think input from every moment that happened. Yeah. So that's why for me it's very important that the moment I'm writing a book about, I wanted to make overview of critical theory, what actually are focal points that we understand something is critical, but also to understand crucial terms from Marxism, like from theoretical point of view, not political, because political program is something else. I'm not that much into politics because in practice, it works a bit harder. Of course, it is important because ideally in dialectics, consciousness and structure should come together. That's what we need to actually know something and to be something and to act correctly and to change structures, right? And of course, everyone should be involved. That's the ideal of since the French Revolution. So this distribution and this recognition and sort of diversity, however we call this, another critical theory approach, Honneth and Habermas. It's not irrelevant because obviously something went in that direction. But to conclude and not to like take all the space, maybe somebody is ready to speak now. In the book, I actually went to two authors. Harris is one, but I will give you references who actually claim that this diagnosis of pathologies, we need to see what is wrong actually to imagine whatever epistemological, methodological research project, what is very important, and we lost this sense of normativity that was originally very popular in Marcuse and Erich Fromm, for example, and these authors go back to them. Despite I understood them very weak for a while and didn't go back to them. I was reading them not that much, not that much, but from very extensively. And then I went back to those ideas. They're very powerful, actually. They're descriptive, okay, but then in conceptual terms, much more powerful and clear that many of these post-structurally, you know. And so, I mean, this idea of the book got so much power. It's very exciting for me also that we were recognizing what we're speaking, because most of the time people here don't understand any theoretical debate. They can't actually place themselves and research they do. They think if they get data and some theory, blah, 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 and mix something, they have something and it's persuasive. It's not about that. You need to understand where you're placed in epistemological structures of everything. And so for me, it was very exciting now that you recognize what I'm talking about. And for this book, I'm going to actually translate those two authors. Another is a person who speaks about neurodiversity, because for critical approaches to pathology, that's very important. I'm going to basically translate them to Serbian and like give overview of critical theory, but I think it's very important. I'm sorry for
no, it's okay, Sonia. It's great to see your enthusiasm. So I think we have probably had 10 minutes. I'm going to share also an author that I was thinking about, Roy Bhaskar, with critical realism. He helps us think about this relationship between, at least for me, he has been helpful in thinking about this relationship between agency and structure. So I'm going to close our rooms. Okay.
I will send you where to send you the book. Sorry.
You can share it in the chat.
In the main.
Yeah, in the main chat. I think it's okay.
I will.
If not, you can send me an email. But yeah, I think it's good to share with everyone. Okay, I'm going to close the rooms. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yes. I was talking and yeah, everything was changing.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi there. Sorry to bring you back here, but the 10 minutes had passed by. I hope you had an interesting conversation. We did.
What did you talk about, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, so basically there's been a problem, which is that Sanyans and the people who drop out for some reason, for example, because of the internet, and then come in again. When
Right.
they come in, they come to a room in which there's only me and Sanya, because for some reason Sanya can't enter any other room. So basically, we've been having in-depth conversations.
Okay.
And I think they are the only ones who have been recorded. This time we went to, but you go ahead, Sanya. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, I just wanted to say that happened on purpose.
So basically, now we were talking about the relationship, which I think is a very important theoretical reflection that we have to have within this working group, within this cost section, which is the relationship between the structure, the social, the economic, and political structure, and individual agency. And this is a complex dimension that we have to take into account into everything that we are going to reflect on through the work that developed in this working group. Yeah, and I was going to share Roy Bhaskar, who has helped me with that. But go ahead, Ricky.
No, thank you very much. So anyone else want to share a point of interest from, because we're very much on the home straight. I've got one more slide to show you, and that I'd like to talk through. But before we do that, it'd be really useful to know, people's observations from today, really, as well as the breakout room that you've just come out from. So I've got that's from you, Mariana. Yeah, that book's a good book. Yeah. So anyone care to share? So if I could be so bold, give people a bit more time to think about how they might want to contribute. We had a really interesting conversation. We looked at Maria's work. I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. And I think what was really interesting, it's clear that I hope you don't mind me revealing this from the group. I think it's in line with what you were talking about, Mariana. I think it's an important consideration of this group and the project. Maria's doing some sterling work. Really good critical work, really revealing important structural dynamics, and particularly in the realm of young people. And I think as a public sociologist, I was thinking, so it's great to get the research out there, it's great to get into the journals, it's great to get into those papers, and that's all important work, but how do we also try and challenge these structures in terms of policy, practice? And I know that's really difficult ask. And that's part of the reason why those of you that are new to this cost project, that's why we've got 3 working groups. So our group is around the conceptualization, and then that will feed into working group 2, which is looking at policy, and then working group 3, which is practice. So it would be really useful that for people in the room who are engaged in, so I think there are a number of things I think we're urging today. So number 1, to think about what is criticality, sharpen up your critical skills, or give you points of references to read stuff to aid your criticality. Maybe iron out some creases in terms of some of the very in-depth conversations that we've been having. And then the idea is, once we start to conceptualize career and career guidance more critically, how can we inform working group 2 around how can that play out in policy? So I'd urge people to start thinking about critical. How are you being critical? Can you be critical? How can you enhance criticality? How can that influence not just the conceptualization of career and career guidance, but policy? Which in turn, how would that play out in So this is the career guidance bit. How would that play out in practice as well? And think of career guidance broadly. It's not just the career coach, the one-to-one. You know, can it feed into the curriculum at varied levels as well? So the critical findings that we're gaining through research and scholarship, how can that feed into policy, practice, and how can we share that across the cost grouping? I think is something that we're really that's our task, isn't it, Mariana and Limor? That's what we're trying to do here. So before I go into my final slide, are there any sort of final observations or any comments or questions at this particular point that would be useful to share? Please just do come on in, just turn your microphone off. Right, Rudolf, please do come on in. You've got your hand up.
Thank you very much. I hope it's okay that I'm in this round, because by a coincidence, yesterday I received the link to enter this conference. And to my person, I'm professor for economic education with a focus on career guidance and initiator and head of Career Lead. It's a research network for career guidance at schools, so we are targeting at least young people. And we are always looking for possibilities to cooperation with other networks like NICE, NICEC, EAVG, and so on. And so it's quite interesting for me to be here. And I would be glad if we could organize a meeting afterwards, perhaps to speak about possibilities for cooperation. So that's one point. But on the other point, I like the political debates. And I have to admit that I'm a little bit provoked by your arguments. And I hope that you're open for a kind of a slight counter speech. Because I'm very open. I'm a liberal, not a radical liberal. I see myself in the tradition of the ordoliberalism. It's a very special German school, meaning at least not unlimited liberalism. It's not neoliberalism. But very important, I think, as 3 or 4 topics. First of all, basically spoken, the idea of liberalism has ended slavery. And the idea of liberalism has ended the communist regime in East Europe. And a lot of people in this round from Middle and East Europe are only sitting here because the liberal Ronald Reagan, together with his European allies, starting with Margaret Thatcher, Pope Johannes Paul, and Helmut Kohl in Germany, were able to crash down the Iron Curtain, 1989. Which led at least to the German reunion, 1990. So I'm very grateful for the ideas of liberalism. But I also have to admit that the politics of Ronald Reagan, 4 presidents later, led to the finance crisis in 2008. I know that. But now, concrete, to speaking about career guidance, I think if people should organize their career by themselves, that has to do a lot with freedom. So I think it's very important to consider the ideas of liberalism if we speak about career construction and life design, that we need self-responsible, free citizens. And it's no contradiction for me, and I'm engaged in projects around inclusion, how to support migrants, how to support impaired people, to combine it with the question, at least, of emboldening. That is at least in the tradition of the subsidiary principle. So at first, the responsible of the individual. But if this individual is overstrength, then of course support.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, the whole point of COST is to create connections. So it's great to have you on board, and yeah, more than happy to meet to talk about further connections. And yeah, of course, there are many different perspectives that we can take in relation to this idea of critical. And yeah, happy. And the whole idea is to try and bring people together to have these debates and discussions, and so that we can start to move towards an idea of what would be most beneficial. And what we're not looking for is sort of like a universal approach here. What we're advocating for is the sharing of knowledge, perspectives, and ideas, so that people can think about what's going to be best in the situation in which they find themselves within. I would personally have some comebacks on what you said, but again, I think that would be better for another time.
Yeah.
But that's what I've really enjoyed about today. Actually, is I've really enjoyed that. Like I said, and I wasn't just being insincere at the beginning when I was saying we're all going to learn from each other. You know, I've been challenged today, and that's good. I want to be challenged, and yeah, you provoked something in me, but I have got some. Yeah, I'd welcome that debate and discussion. Thank you for that, Rudolf.
But I would
Sonia,
also,
please do come.
yes, Sonia.
Sonia, come on in.
I'm sorry, I posted one book by Immanuel Wallerstein. He's like, yeah, he's neo-Marxist, not post-Marxist, because he's still in this economy regarding base superstructure discussion we actually addressed previously by Mariana, in a way. I think this is very interesting, but I wanted to say, despite I was always motivated radically, I also believe all radical ideas are liberal in a way, and that is also argument by Wallerstein, because they all come from the French Parliament, most of those ideas. And I mean, whatever we do, we still are going around this circle in political sense. I mean, there is a sign that you are leaving this circle, but they are more problematic and a warning for even radical thinkers than I think they are welcomed. I hope you will agree, because this neoliberal turn goes into some totally unexpected, at least from my perspective, unexpected. I hope for more democratic models around the world. But however, I think book is very good, and I would support that. Like, and I always, when I discuss with radical groups, I mean, we are not totally outside. We are critiquing. I mean, we are providing critique of something, but we are within. I only wanted to say that maybe you will disagree, but I think it supports and refers to most of. I agree with most of what was said about it, maybe in a different way.
Mariana, come on in.
I was just going to add something that I think it's important, is that within this cost action and with these critical approaches, I think one of the issues that we have to take into account is the challenging individualized perspectives. And I think that is very important, because unfortunately those individualized perspectives have only led to blaming victims for their own situations of precarity and disenfranchisement. So I think that is something that we have to at least agree on, is the idea that in the analysis of decision making, we are never making our decisions solely individually, and this is important for career decision making, but for all our decisions throughout our lives and for the way we interact with others, because we are immersed in a social in a society, something that Thatcher was against and said that didn't exist, and so we are influenced by that, and it's impossible to remove that from the equation and to think, for example, that we make rational decisions. We are not rational beings. We are beings that make decisions as best as they can within all the constraints that they live throughout life and everything that they interact with. So I think that is something important for career counseling. Not to individualize something that people already feel so alone in and so vulnerable, which is their work lives. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to what I was saying previously around the idea of career is always seen as an individual pursuit. most definitely, which invariably therefore gets viewed through the lens of agency. And I would say the undercurrent of that is progress as well. So and progress can be manipulated to certain political ends, which invariably is not serving the majority of people, particularly when you look at it globally. But I'm sure we could continue this debate further. I think I would really urge people to use the comments section to, and we should have, everyone should have access to everyone's emails as well. So if you want to continue, make a note of people you want to continue a discussion with, and you know, and please do make people aware of events that you might have that relate to career that would be of interest to people. I do want to finish off with one slide. I thought it was only fair, seeing as I've been provocative, and I was purposely being provocative, that I come clean on what my position is. And so this is a slide I would like to share. Find it. Here we go. It's this one here. So as a sociologist, I'm going to show my bias here. I'm particularly influenced by the work of Erving Goffman. For me, even though I still think I am working on challenging the individualistic aspect of this, I still think it's a useful way of looking at career. So Erving Goffman in 1961 in his Asylums book describes career as any social strand in a person's life. I define a social strand, therefore, as any activity or development that links a narrative together. And what this does is, for me, is it provides the potential to think of multiple interconnecting careers. So I would imagine all of us have a housing career, a health career, a family career, a learning career, a work career, citizenship career, volunteering career, you name it. Any activity of development that links a narrative together can be described as a career. And what I think this does is it brings the social into our definitions of career. So as a social interactionist, Goffman was very interested in people understanding their place in society, to understand that dynamic you were talking about before, Mariana, between individual agency and one's position within societal assemblages. And what I would argue for here is what I really like about Goffman's definition of career is it breaks out of paid work, and it breaks out of the narrative of progress as well. A strand can go in multiple directions, and it provides a richness in the interconnectedness of the multiple strands in our work. And if I can just finish with a sort of like a personal anecdote, really. So I run this session with my third year sociology students called Alumni Voices, and I invite a range of alumni to come and talk to the third years, and they just have a dialogue and an interaction. And the thing I found really, really interesting about their interactions was they weren't just talking about work. There were obviously questions around, what are you doing since you've left university? How did you get your job? How many CVs and covering letters and applications did you have to make before you were successful? Of course, there were those elements. But what was really interesting was that they were asking questions around, where do you live? Are you working hybrid? Did you go back to the family home? Do you still keep in touch with students that you graduated with? Did you let where you want to live lead where you looked for work, or were you looking for specific jobs and then think about where you would live? And this really lends itself to this idea of career as strands, because it allowed a real richness to come into play in their conceptualizations of career, rather than just thinking about paid work onwards and upwards. And I would agree with you, Mariana, as well, which is that the real double whammy, I think, with sort of looking through career through a neo-colonial, neoliberal lens, is the buck stops with you. If you make mistakes, you blame yourself, you don't blame the system. So if you're in a precarious job and you get made redundant, the chances are people will blame themselves, when it doesn't take into account those broader structures that are providing a very, very precarious labour market, and I would argue for lining the pockets for the very wealthy. and not the many. Anyway, that's me done. That's me finished. We can finish with 15 minutes grace, so you can have a longer lunch, unless anyone's got any burning contributions they would like to provide before we go.
I just want to say something.
Please, Limor, please come on in.
Well, I think what Mariana said is true, but from the psychology lens, research lens, it is a right lens. So because it's like which personality effect on the career and so on. So it really depends. But from the sociology part, maybe lens, organizational sociology, it's more social construct theory. It's what you talked. I think social or is like a stage the behavior of people and why it's happening. So it's what you said, Mariana. We have to maybe analyze what is the contribution of the social construction theory and how things happen to us, not individually. So when this is more the sociological, I think, lens. And this theory, I'm not sure you mentioned that the organizational sociological theory is like the construct theory that talking about that not everything in the career is depending on us, more social, I think, construction and so on. So this is, I think, something that I wanted to mention about this review. Yeah, Mariana.
Yeah, well, I was just going into, because psychology is more than mainstream psychology. And I would say that probably people who are also, I'm also a psychologist in terms of my background, and I do clinical psychology and career counseling for 20 odd years. And of course, the training that we have at university is extremely mainstream, but there are other possibilities. Nowadays, we have critical psychology, and we have also other approaches from community psychology, and these are much more transdisciplinary in the way that they integrate and these various disciplines to understand something that is the most complex issue on earth, which is the human being, because and so it takes a psychosocial approach, and that is the trend that has been also influencing the social justice turn, both in psychotherapy, in psychology, and in career counseling. But maybe we are going a little bit too over the time limit. And so I would like, I hope everyone, I must say that it was wonderful to be here with you all. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Limor. And thank you all of you who participated during this morning. It was very, very interesting to hear all of these debates and to be guided through this complex approach by Ricky. And I think the aim is for us to develop each one. Basically, I'm going to share, this is a little bit of a self-disclosure here. So I'm also doing a project on green guidance, career counseling that takes into account environmental issues. But the way I am, I can't be only about environmental issues, because environmental issues are social, economic, and political at their basis. So when we got to the end of the project, we developed a training for career counselors in Portugal. And so the way I developed the training was to integrate the green guidance with a social justice approach. This is also something that I think is important for us here in the way that I'm talking with the psychologists there. Of course, what we are saying within a critical approach is that no one is value-free. No science is value-free, and no one approaches their job and much more an important something as complex as theoretical analysis or empirical data analysis from a value-free perspective. That doesn't exist. So what I'm saying is this is where I come from, but we don't have to depart from the same point. Okay, so that is the pluralism that I think Ricky was also trying to inspire here. This is where we come from. This is where we are positioned in this cost section and in this working group, and this is our proposal. But of course, everyone is free to approach it from different ways. But what we are addressing here is there are some things that we may have in common, and those are the things that connect us. Those are a concern for social justice, and if there's a concern for social justice, these issues could be reflected, but then we can do it from different points of view. So I think that's the final message, that we are working together, but we can find the ones that we feel more comfortable with and work with them within this project. So this is what I propose. I don't know if you agree, Ricky, Limor, but I think that's the basis for our work.
I would say something, maybe final thing that evolved from the rooms that I was with people there, scholars. I think maybe we can prepare an online sheet with the interest of people here. I mean, subject of research, and maybe people can interact together, a project that people are interested in. So, and we can match, and there will be more collaboration.
Yes.
I think it might be very interesting with details of people and so on. So, but this is after this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then during the afternoon, we'll get to know each other a little bit better. We have some people who have registered themselves to present. We are also going to present, the three of us. We will also have the subgroup leaders to present. And if people want to join and also show their show and tell what they've been doing with this cost action, that would be great. So see you at 1:30 p.m. in my time zone. See you. Bye.